All right, good morning. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. Market's off to a sluggish start here this morning, and nothing different than what the market has been, right? Just absolutely nothing different. We're not talking about anything game-changing or, any sort of news that, is indicative of something new happening and all that kind of stuff. So let's go take a look at what's on tap here this week. We'll go take a look at the challenge, and then we will go and take a look at the material sector. A few interesting things going on there. But here we have this week in the U.S., you'll notice not a lot of economic data set to be released here this week. Very light data week. We do have retail sales tomorrow, but a lot of times that number is just too much hindsight to have a big reaction in the market. But you'll notice it is a Fed parade this week. It is an absolute Fed parade. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Then we get the Fed Beige Book on Wednesday. 10, 11, 12 Fed speakers here this week, or 12 times that various members of the Fed are going to speak here this week. And that's going to be the theme here this week. It is going to be the theme. Is the Fed changing their mind, or are they going to lower rates? And that's going to be the theme, and that's likely to be the driver here this week. If we look globally, we don't have a whole lot of economic data either. Just not a lot. Not a lot for the market to sink its teeth into. A little bit of inflation data out of Germany. The German zoo survey, which, I know it's not marked as a market mover, but can definitely move the market, has in the past. But very light data week. We saw the Empire State Manufacturing number this morning come out a little bit better than expected. It was expected to be 0.8, came in at 4.3. Which is a nice little jump, and so the market sold it, right? The market sold it as the market is fearful of positive economic data, as, is that going to make the Fed reverse course, right? Which, yes, and we talked about it last week. It doesn't make a heck of a lot of sense, if we want to put it in logical terms, but makes a lot of sense if we put it in market terms, right? And market and logic are not always the same thing. If we come in here to estimize, I'm going to bring up the earnings here this week. We're going to be starting to get into the earnings season going forward here. But Citigroup. Right, Citigroup this morning, JB Hunt after the bell with their earnings. Here tomorrow we have J.P. Morgan, J&J, Goldman Sachs, United Airlines. So we're starting to get into the early part of earnings season here. Netflix on Wednesday, IBM after the bell Wednesday, Bank of America. So some pretty big names, just the typical names at the beginning of a season. Some names like Microsoft are bumped up a little bit earlier in the season this time, but Honeywell down a little bit later. But, we're going to start hearing from companies. We're going to start seeing what some of these corporate earnings look like, and, really kind of how they alter and, move the market, or how the market is going to respond to them. I have not had a chance to go through everything with Citigroup yet, but you can see, since the earnings, right, traded up pre-market, sold off early, snapping on back. I suspect we'll see a lot of this when it comes to earnings, that we'll see a lot of initial selling on earnings that gets bought up a little bit later, and that's my expectation when it comes to earnings season here. So anyway, that's on tap here this week, and we'll have the normal trade war talk and Trump tweets and that kind of stuff. That's not going away. I'm sure we'll have the Iranians chirping a little bit this week, trying to saber rattle a little bit more, but none of that is really kind of affecting the market in any significant way. All right, let's go take a look at the challenge. We are at that time. There are no new signals right now here in the market. We do have some stuff going on with materials that I'll show here after we go through things. But we do have to make a partial exit here on Intel. So let's come into the trade sheet, and we'll come in and we'll update the pricing, see what we got to do. So target option is 233. Intel option is 372. 372, 233. There we go. Let's take a look at Chevron. And Chevron option is 335. So nothing too dramatic here, but does put the challenge gains over 13,000. So hitting a new high here for the challenge, which is always nice to see and always appreciated. If we come in, we do have Intel, which the price of the stock is trading above its current profit level. So we're going to go and we're going to split this out. Right, and we're going to split this out into 8 and 5. So let's come in here. I'll do the sheet afterwards, but let's come in here and take off some of the contracts here. Okay. Now we are dealing with a company, on a company that where the options are deep in the money, right? They're deep in the money right now, so we are going to affect the delta, here with a little bit of a trim. This was not set up to be a super explosive trade to start, and it's definitely not not being a super explosive trade here, but going to take off 40%. Right, which means we're taking off 5 contracts here of Intel. And let's see here what the bid ask is. The bid ask is 365, 375. So going to pop off those 5 contracts and see if they fill it. They're not going to fill it. So let's come in here and we'll alter it. All right, so 365 exit there on 5 contracts of Intel. Okay. Make sure the alert goes out correctly. So 365 on 5 contracts there. There we go. All right, so that's out and off and gone. Okay. All right. So if we come into the spreadsheet here, we essentially have 8 contracts and 5 contracts, right? We just break that down there. Current price of the stock when we've made this alteration, we need to put in here. So we have Intel trading at 50.10. Right, so 50.10 is what we will consider to be the stock entry price for this leg, right? And so that's going to take our new profit level to 52.08 and our new stop level to 49.11, and then we're going to have our auto exit dates change by 3 days here. So 7/18 is going to be the red exit, right? 7/18 p.m. or excuse me a.m. And then what do we have? Probably going into next week for the green. Yeah, so 7:22 a.m. Is going to be the auto exit date there for Intel if the option is in the red there. All right, we can close this first one here. We have 7:15 a.m. is the exit. 365 was the exit price there. All right, and boom, there we go. There we go. So we have about $3,000 on Intel right now, right? $3,000 in it. I think what we start the trade with about $3,000 in the trade. So we pretty much took our gains off and are running here with a little bit more. Well, we took a little bit more, or excuse me, a little bit less than our gains off, I believe. So anyway, that's where things sit. That's all we have to do there to adjust accordingly, and we should be good. I'm just double checking here. All right, perfect. Perfect. Okay. So no new signals, right now on the board. We do have cash. We do have some cash to put into play, about 3,700, somewhere around there. So we could trade the next signal and put 4 trades on the board. We're not going to see 4 trades on the board very often, but this is one of those situations where we can, because we've had a stock go up and hit 2 average true ranges and are pulling it here. Okay. Alrighty, so let's see. Chevron, yep, not at our time stops. 7:15 p.m. Is the auto exit here for Chevron. So, if the option's red here at the close, we'll pull Chevron. If it's green, we'll be able to continue to hold on to that and go forward there. Okay, would sure be nice to see Chevron have one of those just kind of explosive up days and leave this chart pattern in the lurch and off and send it off and running here in a strong way. All right, material sector. When we look at some of the stocks that are close to triggering here this morning for the challenge, and we could see these be challenge triggers by the end of the day. Alcoa's on the watch list. Right, and has a fresh 3-7 cross here today. You'll notice it's starting to trade back into the middle portion of its range, just slightly below 50 here, but with that fresh 3-7 crossover. But one of the things in the entire sector is we do see a little bit of higher low coming into play after the reversal we saw in the group last week. And we can go to something like a U.S. Steel, which is also on the watch list, and it has the same element in play, the sell, sell, sell. All right, rally on up, pull on back, higher low in play, and starting to push back higher with a 3-7 crossover coming into play. So we're seeing this happen, kind of across the board with a lot of these lagging material names. Some of the leading material names like Arconic, we're not seeing the same action. We're seeing that action reversed, and it really looks as if there's this valuation shift going on, where we're starting to see, money really slow up into some of the bigger outperformers of late, and money start to go into some of the recent underperformers, like a Alcoa, like a U.S. Steel, like an FCX here. And, if you come into some of the things like a BHP, it's been an outperformer, but also had a, pretty sharp drop, getting a little bit of higher low coming into play. Rio getting a little bit of higher low coming into play. So some very interesting action within that space. It's one of those where you have to, anytime you trade that space, you have to decide, well, how aggressive do you want to be, right? Because we could take something like an Alcoa, and, you can see the spreads just aren't that great when it comes to Alcoa. But, it's something that if it does move, it can move pretty sizably, right? You can get a $3-4 move on a stock like this without, too much fuss, over the course of a 2 to 3 week period. And so the options, definitely pay. But, it's one of those where how aggressive do you want to get, here with them. Now, if it does trigger for the challenge, and I do trade it for the challenge, the option choice isn't much of a choice. We know where it's going to be. We know what option we go with, and we run with it. So it's not, that's not a difficult decision. But if you want to run with something like this outside the challenge, right, there's earnings, those factors to kind of take into place, take into account here. Something like a U.S. Steel, the August 14s, basically what do you need? Do you need a $2 move to double your money? Can U.S. Steel give a $2 move? Absolutely, right? I mean, it made a $3 move in 3 days right back here in the middle of June. So, for a stock like a U.S. Steel to have, enough movement to really pay the options off, is pretty easy. So, it's a group that, I was looking at this morning as the market opened on up and, really just, really taking a close gander at it. You'll notice something like U.S. Steel, 15% short, PE ratio of 2, book value of 24, the stock's trading at 14, right? And for good reason, right? For good reason. There's some serious issues here, but it's one where it's just simply one where if you want to take the chance that, you see the reversal trade happen or a simple short squeeze, happen, it could definitely pay off in a rather quick fashion. So yeah, we're seeing that within the space. I'm not in it. I haven't jumped into any of them yet. Monday morning, you know how I sit. I typically sit and watch. I don't like making big decisions. I don't even like making small decisions on Monday mornings, just because a lot of times the action that we see in the market is relative nonsense. It's not meaning a heck of a whole lot. But this is one of the areas where I think we're seeing something a little bit different, and partly because of what we saw come into play last week. Deer, which is kind of in this space, not exactly, but kind of in this space. Whenever you see these big V shapes, right? These V shapes almost always go higher. They will find resistance up at the top, and that's what Deer has found. It's been downgraded. Today it was upgraded, but it's found resistance up here at the top, but it's now been sitting here at these levels for a little while. To see this bust on higher and trade up into the 180s is what I'm expecting to see here from Deer. And, so, yeah. A lot of chop associated with Deer. It's not one where if you buy it and it moves 30 cents against you, it's terrible. It's one that when you look at the chart pattern, you look at what's going on. If you can get yourself in with a decent little cushion here, definitely has the reward potential associated with it here. Right now in this market. Thanks for hopping on. Have yourselves a fantastic day. I'll be back on with you here this afternoon. I will talk to you then. Take care.